Once an apparently unworthy student who seemed never to become a Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi was the third Padawan of the Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Obi-Wan Kenobi later became a legendary Jedi Knight who rose to prominence after his defeat of Sith apprentice Darth Maul during the Naboo Crisis in 19 BBY. Following Jinn's death, Kenobi took charge of Anakin Skywalker's training and went on to serve with distinction during the galactic conflict known as the Clone Wars, eventually being named to the Jedi Council. After Anakin Skywalker's defection to the Sith, Kenobi tracked down his former apprentice to Mustafar, where he challenged and managed to gravely injure the recently anointed Darth Vader before watching over the birth of Vader's children, Luke and Leia. Kenobi lived out the rest of his days on the planet Tatooine, waiting for the right moment to begin the younger Skywalker's training. During a mission meant to release Princess Leia and deliver the stolen Death Star plans to the desperate Rebel Alliance, Kenobi faced his erstwhile apprentice for one final time before sacrificing himself. He would go on to continue guiding Luke Skywalker in the ways of the Force before convincing the ancient Jedi Master Yoda to complete the young man's training. Obi-Wan Kenobi is remembered as one of the greatest Jedi in the Order's history. Sora Bulk was a Jedi Master whose family resided on the Weequay moon known as Rule. While still considered a powerful Force-sensitive, Bulk was famed more for his incredible prowess with the lightsaber, noted for having mastered all 7 classical lightsaber forms. After studying with Jedi Master Mace Windu and assisting in the refinement of Vaapad, a style Windu created off the back of Juyo, the wildly aggressive 7th form of lightsaber combat, Sora began to open himself up to the call of the dark side. After witnessing the massive loss of Jedi life on Geonosis at the start of the Clone Wars, Sora became further disillusioned with his order. He eventually crossed over to the Separatist war effort, serving as one of Count Dooku's most dangerous lieutenants, along with the likes of General Grievous and Asajj Ventress. Due to the fact that he already had fully honed his skills as a Jedi, Sora Bulk's only real training under Dooku remained either tactical or political. As a result of his aforementioned experience, Bulk became the commander and occasional instructor of the fallen Jedi Knights known as the Dark Acolytes, which included the errant Jedi Master Quinlan Vos. Due to his reputation, Sora remained a respected figure amongst the Jedi even after his covert defection from his order. Using his status to his advantage, Bulk worked in collusion with Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress to destabilize the Jedi Order from within before he was exposed as a traitor by Mace Windu. Sora Bulk eventually met his end on the planet Selu Kamai, where his cloning facility was attacked by a Jedi-headed military force led by Masters Thulm, Quinlan Vos, and Aayla Secura. On Dooku's order, an enraged Bulk led a counterattack focusing his efforts and rage on Jedi Spy Master Thulm, who had been harassing and sabotaging Bulk's efforts for a period of several months whilst remaining undetected from within the Separatist facility. Though Bulk managed to subdue Thulm, he became embroiled in a fierce lightsaber duel with Quinlan Vos soon thereafter. Bulk quickly gained the upper hand, but the fight eventually ended with the Kefar Jedi finally cutting down the once admired Jedi Swordsmaster. His body was consumed by the flow of lava accompanying the destruction of the facility. Alright, so let's analyze this. If these two prominent figures in galactic history ever met on the battlefield in a duel to the death, which of them would walk away? Well, in his prime, Obi-Wan Kenobi was considered by Mace Windu to be the single greatest master of Soresu of the age. Soresu, the third form of lightsaber combat, was first developed in response to the increase in availability of blaster technology. Later, the form became a more refined expression of non-aggressive Jedi philosophy, designed around defense. The style is characterized by tight, efficient movements that expose minimal target areas. Thus, as the consummate master of Form 3, Obi-Wan Kenobi was an expert with blast deflection and nearly invincible while engaging in a lightsaber duel. To summarize, Kenobi's fighting style is characterized by a modest, elegant simplicity that few have ever been able to outmaneuver. In keeping with the connotations long adhered to the common throng of venerable Form 3 masters, Kenobi, while not always able to surmount his adversary, was himself almost impossible to defeat due to his impeccable defensive capabilities. A worthy point of note is that many of the defensive lapses Kenobi suffered throughout the Clone Wars were brought about either by overwhelming military strength on his opponent's behalf, or through the application of strongly oriented dark force powers, rather than a superior lightsaber technique. And even here, only the most elite opponents managed to catch Kenobi off guard in this way. Now, while Kenobi himself has stated that Form 3 is the only style in which he believes himself to be truly proficient in, I think that that belief can be relegated to something much more in the way of self-effacement. Kenobi, while being most widely known for his prowess with Form 3 certainly, was actually one of the most tenacious and versatile Jedi of his age. In his youth, he studied Ataru, the preferred form of his master, Qui-Gon Jinn, and while Kenobi certainly never elevated this practice to its purest expression in quite so destructive a fashion as other Form 4 masters such as Yoda, he was skilled enough with it to match the prodigious talents of Darth Maul for a relatively lengthy amount of time, considering the pace with which lightsaber duels are normally fought. This points not only to an adept level of competence, though perhaps not an actual mastery of Form 4, but also to a high degree of stamina, as Form 4 is characterized as a demanding and exhaustive practice. On a few occasions, Kenobi has demonstrated the ability to wield dual sabers, suggesting a competence with the Jarkai variant on one of the other forms, which in turn implies an understanding of Naman, the sixth form of lightsaber combat. So basically, you'd be hard-pressed to find a style that Kenobi lacks at least a rudimentary understanding of how to either use or counter. As the Clone Wars raged on, Kenobi, through experience, became adept at defending against an astonishing array of opponents, including legions of enemy soldiers, elite bounty hunters, dual-wielders, double-bladed saber stylists, and so on. Though he was defeated with clear ease during his first bout with Dooku, Kenobi's dueling-centric skills were fostered during the war, and by their last battle, Kenobi's practice of Soresu allowed him to defend capably against the Sith Lord. During this fight, Dooku had to use his Force powers to efficiently subdue the Jedi Master, as his own application of Makashi simply was no longer sufficient to break through Kenobi's defense, and that is saying something. By the end of the war, only the most lethal Darksiders and most powerful Jedi Council members of the time could have challenged him, his defenses even holding against the fallen Chosen One, Darth Vader. He even kept his skills honed during his long, isolated exile on Tatooine, where he defeated a fellow Order 66 survivor, the troubled former Jedi Knight Asherad Het, the son of another prominent Jedi and Jarkai specialist, and eventual Dark Lord of the Sith. On various occasions, he has demonstrated a knack for unarmed combat, the example in which he is depicted holding his own against a fully equipped Jango Fett being only one of many. Noted for an uncanny ability to take an immense amount of punishment, Kenobi was a very tough Jedi with an indomitable will. Although an actual confrontation was always Kenobi's last resort wherever applicable, when he was forced to strike, he would do so expertly. As a general of the Clone Wars, Kenobi, along with his then commander, former Padawan and great friend, Anakin Skywalker, enjoyed a great number of military victories due in no small part to Kenobi's keen tactical mind, patience, and application of Jedi philosophy. And now we'll turn our attention to Sora Bulk, who has far less exposure than Kenobi, and so a moderate amount of assumptions are going to have to be made based on the character's comparatively infrequent appearances. In stark contrast to Obi-Wan Kenobi, Sora Bulk's fighting style reflected a near-complete abandonment of the Jedi Code or adherence to defense above offense. Though it is of course true that Vapad was developed by Mace Windu to channel an inner darkness into an expression of light, Bulk's application of the style failed to even vaguely represent those principles. During an intelligence briefing to fellow masters Ki-Adi-Mundi and Agent Kolar, in reference to Sora Bulk's defection, Mace Windu describes Vapad as follows. I developed Vapad to answer my own weakness and channel my inner darkness into a weapon of the light. To use Vapad, a Jedi must give himself over to the thrill of battle, enjoying the fight and the satisfaction of winning. A Jedi must also accept and embrace the fury of his opponent. This transforms a Jedi into half of a superconducting loop, the other half being the power of darkness, which passes in and out of the Jedi without touching him. Vapad is more than a fighting style. It is a state of mind, a path that leads through the penumbra of the dark side. During the same report, Mace goes on to say that it is his contention that Sora Bulk was mastered by the form and not the converse. Windu also admits it was a mistake to expose Bulk to Vapad as well. However, even though his application of the art failed to meet up with the intention of the practice, there can be no doubt that Bulk's fighting style was deadly and meticulously developed. Unlike Mace Windu or Depa Billaba, the style's only other practitioners, Sora utilized a standard lightsaber along with a shorter-bladed Shoto lightsaber. The use of a shorter second blade made his weapons easier to control, an advantage traditional Jarkai duelists typically did not enjoy. But a consequence of the dual blades is the inability to incorporate an overwhelming amount of strength into one's lightsaber sequences. Now, as Kenobi was shown to be capable of defending against Anakin Skywalker's single-bladed application of the Gemso, the strength-oriented dueling style, this may not make much of a difference. However, it would force Sora to instead focus on attempting to outmaneuver Obi-Wan or outmatching his speed rather than simply attempting to power through the Jedi's defenses by meeting him head-on with strength. Thus, the addition of a second blade would actually provide Sora with less tactical viability. And this is not Sora's strong suit. His usual tactic was to power through his opponent's defenses with reckless abandon. However, it should be noted that Sora is of course a deadly single-bladed stylist as well, so the contest would have to consider him simply resorting to using a single blade if he felt that the circumstances called for it, though this is not his instinct. Though he was defeated with relative ease by Count Dooku, it should be noted that this was not a victory achieved using a blade, but by using the Force. After his fall, I think it's safe to assume that Bulk became a more deadly lightsaber duelist than he had previously been thought, despite his already considerable reputation. During this time, his skill was such that he could rival the revered swordsman Mace Windu, if only for a time, and also thoroughly outclassed Master Thulm and even Quinlan Vos during the early days of the Clone Wars. He has used the pommel of his lightsaber as well as physical strikes, utilizing punches and kicks in combat, and he has also shown a proclivity for incorporating telekinetic attacks into his lightsaber sequences. Now, as Mace was shown to be far and away the better duelist during his subsequent bout with Asajj Ventress, who had been equal to the other 3 Jedi Knights on her own, I think it's safe to assume that if Bulk could stand against Windu for even a moderate amount of time, then he too must have been capable of not only defending against, but winning a bout against fully trained knights in the multiple. This is an assumption, but based on the evidence, I think it likely that Sora was in the same league with most council members, and probably greater than some of them in terms of lightsaber mastery. Physically speaking, Obi-Wan is younger, and presumably both faster and stronger than Bulk. However, this really doesn't mean very much. Obi-Wan was a Padawan at the same time as Quinlan Vos, and though it is true that Quinlan was a Kifar and thus technically classed as near human. They are nearly indistinguishable from humans aside from their distinct facial tattoos and the psychometric ability of some of their race. Thus, Bulk would be able to match Obi-Wan either because of his excellent physical conditioning or because he can simply use the Force to elevate his strength, speed, and stamina to the same level of a human comparable to Obi-Wan in terms of age and health, such as Quinlan Vos. And now we address their Force abilities. Kenobi was one of the greatest Jedi Masters of his day, carrying an incredible knowledge of and sensitivity to the living Force, and he proved himself capable of applying many abilities from a wide array of disciplines and focuses. To start with, his more rudimentary abilities were very well developed. His speed and agility were excellent, his Force-enhanced stamina reinforced to an inhuman capacity, his telekinetic attacks potentially devastating, his Force push rivaling that of even Anakin Skywalker's after the latter's fall to the dark side. On a more advanced level, his mental and telepathic abilities were also considerable. He was a master of telepathic manipulation, as demonstrated on numerous occasions, and known amongst his comrades for his disdain for mechanical vehicles, Kenobi preferred living mounts whenever and wherever possible, due to the connection between animal and rider, a bond he never hesitated to strengthen through the Force. At times, he has also demonstrated mastery over the Beast Trick ability as well. Kenobi has also been depicted using the Force to deflect projectiles, fire, and even blaster bolts, though Force lightning is apparently beyond his ability to absorb or redirect without the usage of a lightsaber. Of worthy note, he is perhaps most famous for his ability to transcend the living plane as a Force spirit after his physical death, a state he gained awareness of after studying from Masters Qui-Gon Jinn and Yoda. Sora Bulk, on the other hand, has a comparatively limited grasp on Force abilities. His application of the Force in battle appears to be limited to quick bursts of telekinetic attacks, suited to backing up his overwhelming offensive lightsaber technique. At no point do we see Sora stray from this path, even though we really only follow his journey after his allegiance to Dooku. And this is where the greatest divergence between Bulk and Kenobi comes into play. Sora Bulk is very straightforward. It doesn't matter if he's wildly swinging a saber at you or using the Force to bat you around the arena like some savage. Now, this isn't to say that he's a slouch in Force power. Yoda, for one, acknowledges him as a powerful Jedi who trained many students personally, and he was capable of masking his presence in the Force, though not to the same degree as Jedi Spy Master Thulm or his Padawan Quinlan Vos, two of Bulk's most hated adversaries. And presumably he must have been sufficiently skilled to effectively hide in plain sight amongst his fellow Jedi, since it was not immediately apparent to them that he was now a Darksider. However, it should be noted that Sora changes gradually as the Clone Wars rage on. Initially we see that he is quite distressed by the death of one of his former Padawans, now a knight called Mira, who was an unintended casualty of his sham duel with Asajj Ventress. We also see that he genuinely was appalled by the deaths of so many Jedi on Geonosis. Now later, by the end of the war of course, he became a vessel of irrational, unchecked rage. So he actually may not have had too much to conceal from his former comrades at this early point in the war. A distinction to be made here is that based on his various actions, we are actually presented with more information on what Sora Bulk is incapable of, rather than what he is capable of. We see, for instance, that he is capable of standing against Mace for an extensive period of time, and that he initially dominated his duel with Quinlan, and that he can also use the Force to gain the temporary upper hand. But beyond that, he has failed to evidence any other abilities aside from the augmentation of certain physical attributes common to all Jedi and Sith, but most especially those who tend to favor their martial skills above their studies of the Force. Now, of course, I don't want to get too sidetracked because the video is called Sora Bulk vs. Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I'm going to have to take a short detour here and examine Bulk's killer, Quinlan Vos, for obvious reasons. In the short space of time that we follow Quinlan's story, a period that spans only about a few years, we see this Jedi go from being an amnesiac to a conflicted but potentially powerful Jedi with training from the likes of Mace Windu and Count Dooku, and even skills passed down from elite Anzadi assassins. After his apprenticeship to Dooku, we see that Quinlan has evinced signs of a much stronger connection to the Force, and applies his newly acquired dark abilities in earnest against other Force sensitives. His abilities include telekinetic attacks used to levitate and choke the victim, enhanced speed, agility, and stamina, the ability to cloak his presence even from other fully trained Jedi and Dark Jedi, enhanced psychometric capabilities, and the perception of various Force apparitions and visions. Compared to this, Sora Bulk has nothing. Yes, he has used the Force to cloak his presence from Oppo Rancisis, whom he murdered soon thereafter, but he did this while distracting Rancisis using a team of Anzadi assassins as his cover. This implies, to me anyway, that he was either incapable of fully masking his presence from such a strong Force sensitive, or was at the very least apprehensive about his ability to do so. Here we see not a display of power, but a rare successful act of duplicity on Bulk's part, in which he takes a leaf out of Obi-Wan's playbook. A fight is never a goal in itself. Sometimes it is only a distraction from the true goal. Yes, we do see that he is capable of telekinetic manipulation, but only on a very basic, primal, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you level. At no point do we see him actually using the environment around him, or using the Force to choke an opponent, for example. And this is what I'm getting at. It's important to analyze this final duel because it establishes three important things about Sora Bulk. 1. He allows his anger to blind him. 2. He's very straightforward, and as a result is both tactically predictable while remaining prone to vulnerability from the unexpected. 3. He's likely weaker than Quinlan Vos as a Force user, and is therefore weaker than Obi-Wan Kenobi in the same area. Let's go through each point in further detail. 1. During the initial melee, Bulk's energies and emotions were directed at Thom, who had been harassing and sabotaging Bulk's facility for several months while remaining undetected. He blatantly and purposely drew out this fight not out of a sense of arrogance analogous to duelists like Darth Maul, for example, but because he wanted Thom to suffer for the trouble he'd caused him. Even for someone who's on the dark path, this is not the tendency of the wise. 2. Sora Bulk is too straightforward, not only in regards to his own offensive approach, but also in terms of what he has come to expect from his opponents. As great a duelist as he is, he's been outsmarted on numerous occasions, oftentimes through the most simplistic means possible. One such example being when Thom called forth shards of shattered glass to off-balance Sora Bulk and used the debris as cover to make his escape. Even other battle-oriented duelists such as Darth Maul have been seen using bits of wreckage to activate a panel in order to open doors in the midst of combat, thus opening up a larger dueling ground. Sora also proved incapable of locating Thom for the 5-month duration of the latter's time spent on Selu Kamai. Windu and Dooku both revealed his vulnerability to Force-based attacks, including lightning, despite his practice of Vapad. Strategically speaking, Sora is limited even here, while also failing to efficiently negate any sort of opponent's application of such tactics in battle. 3. During this fight, Quinlan Vos was uncertain how much his own life and accomplishments were worth, and seemed to be losing the will to fight back as the battle raged on. I do maintain that he simply wasn't giving it his all for the majority of this fight with Bulk, as he was embroiled with a far deeper internal conflict, with Bulk acting as a physical manifestation of Voss's true enemy, his own inner demons. With Aayla Secura's support, Voss managed to regain his fighting spirit and quickly managed to place a well-timed and presumably force-speed enhanced slash of the lightsaber that ended Sora Bulk's life. However, I will still decisively name Sora Bulk as the greater lightsaber duelist between the two. But I also believe that Quinlan was both the stronger and more varied in terms of force power, considering the number of ways Quinlan has used it and the ways that Sora has not used it. A conclusion further backed up by the fact that Quinlan is both years younger and is yet to reach his peak, while Bulk has had more decades to fully develop his force talents. At this point, it's a bit like splitting hairs when we ask if he's allowed these skills to atrophy in favor of his mastery of the lightsaber, or if he simply never could use them to begin with. The end result is still the same though. They'll be of no use to him during his bout with Kenobi. So how does all of this information break down? Well, even though it's entirely possible to point to Bulk as an equal, or perhaps even greater swordsman than Kenobi, given his knowledge of all 7 forms of classical lightsaber combat, he is still just way too straightforward and lacking in force power to achieve victory against so versatile a Jedi Master as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Where Sora is competent with every form, Obi-Wan has mastered a few to the point where all of his bases are covered, whether from an offensive stance or a defensive stance. Where it would perhaps be exceedingly difficult for Obi-Wan to shatter Bulk's defenses, even with his knowledge of Ataru, Bulk would be hard-pressed to keep up a steady, long-term offensive stance against Kenobi's Soresu technique. As a result of that probable impasse and the negligible physical advantage that either may hold over the other, this contest will be decided by force powers, ingenuity, and tactical level-headedness. And Obi-Wan completely and utterly outclasses Bulk in each of these areas. Though ostensibly reckless, Obi-Wan Kenobi's tactics are always tailored for the situation at hand and very well thought out and almost impossible to predict. Where personal adversaries with an intimate knowledge of Kenobi's history, tendencies, and compassionate nature may be able to exploit this knowledge in some way, or taunt him, or provoke him into action, Sora has nothing to tempt Obi-Wan with. Where Sora's first instinct is to devote all of his efforts to a direct offense, Kenobi can counter that with consummate ease, while devising an off-the-cuff strategy tailored for the specific circumstances, setting, and opponent in question. For all of these reasons, I will name Obi-Wan Kenobi as the decisive winner of this contest. So, as I always like to remind you at the end of these videos, this is all just for fun, and this is only my analysis. If you have your own opinion, if you have feedback you'd like to share, if you disagree with something I said, that's all fine. Just keep the debate civil. Post your comment in the section below. If you have a lot to say, go ahead and send me a message, or better yet, make a video response. Thanks for watching, everybody. I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded anything at all, but I hope to be able to upload a bit more regularly. As of now, I have a lot more in store for you, a lot more planned to be released soon, and I will catch you all on the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.